Allow me to take you through a hypothetical situation. You are a terrible blacksmith. You have a father named Andre who has disowned you because every weapon you've ever touched has broken after a single swing. Swords, grandma's walking cane, Nerf bows, they're all one hit from exploding into 8 million pieces. And this isn't a hypothetical, it's real. Will we overcome our complete martial incompetence, or will we break everything we own and die painfully? There's only one way to find out. And as soon as I load into the map, I make my first mistake, obliterating this helpless imp with one of my precious bows. As you can see, my weapons are now completely cooked. I made sure to drop them, as broken weapons are useless to everyone. A brain cat helped the show go on, and the party was gathered to go rescue our queen, Zaza. Now, nobody wants to ally with a smelly, moronic, Precambrian, hyper-aggressive, cultist, green-skinned scumbag like this. But she needs safe passage, and I need combat testing. Unfortunately, to say it didn't go well would be an understatement, and Zaza fell in combat.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
That night I thought long and hard about where to find more ammunition to keep us going, but Astarion broke my concentration, and I broke his heart. The next day we replaced that volatile narcissist with someone much more stable. We knew of a certain Gith who had a lot of weapons on her, weapons which I desperately needed. So, Gale moved in on the high ground, and right on cue, out pops our target, Lae'zel. She still had all of our gear from the Nautiloid, so, using Sanctuary, the Gith were led right into my ambush. Unfortunately, the Flaming Fist were deleted before my eyes, one after another. Reinforcements arrived just in time, and after a few trips back and forth to Withers, this encounter came to an end, yielding a massive supply of weapons to replenish our stock. Now, traders do sell an infinite amount of normal weapons. However, using this would be heretical against the spirit of the challenge. We could still buy unique weapons from traders, but after a certain paladin fight, our ammunition was running dangerously low, so fighting through all the goblins was not a viable option. Luckily, Minthara loves this scroll in her desk, and if you happen to drag it all the way over to the Bridge of No XP, you can feed her right to the void. Big man Raglan was next on the chopping block, and an arrow of roaring thunder would surely send him cave diving. 4 arrows later, I was proven wrong. The real cost of this wasn't that my drywall needed to be replaced, it was that I was down 4 more ranged weapons. I returned 30 minutes later with a new arrow and pumped Raglan filled with caffeine until he went into a coma. With the goblin leaders in various stages of the room temperature challenge, it was time to tell Zevlor the great news. He seemed enthusiastic, but teleported away before giving me any rewards. At this point, I considered clearing out Grimforge for the XP, but on a real note, fuck the Dwegar. All my homies hate the Dwegar. I spent hours in my last challenge run fighting these dirty little men, and I was not about to suffer the same fate twice, which meant we were already off to Act 2. It is here that we meet a wizard so powerful, he has altered the very fabric of our world and saved it countless times. Naturally, he shows up to ask for cheese and tell Gale,
"Your life is nothing. You serve zero purpose. You should kill yourself now."
At this point, we had already collected around 100 torches, the most abundant weapon in the game. Luckily for us, they're even more abundant in Act 2, along with many new places to gather other basic weapons for free. As per usual though, a particular lantern would be our next goal. Following the brave Harpers through hungry shadows, we prepared to ambush a convoy headed to Moonrise Towers. Now, I did say the Harpers were brave, but that does not mean they are competent. There's a fine line between bravery and stupidity, and these warriors leap over said line with no regard for personal safety. I tried my best to assist them, but being so underleveled and needing to equip a new weapon every other turn meant our DPS was negligible, to put it nicely, which meant it was time for Plan B. Gale snuck up on the Drider and used Command Drop, went over to pick up the lantern, and provoked an opportunity attack. Luckily, Shadowheart was able to show up to make sure both of them died instead of just Gale. Round 3 finally went according to plan, and the moon lantern was sent back to camp for Eric Andre, who immediately broke the lantern upon trying to use it, which I should have seen coming. As punishment for my transgressions, the pixie revealed my true form. We had an innovative and courageous plan for Moonrise this run, because we were going to gaslight every single person in this tower. Shadowheart walked around casting drop on the population of Moonrise. If she failed, it was simply a matter of saying, no, that didn't actually happen, and you're crazy. Upon success, the weapon was grabbed, and she would tell them not only has this always been hers, but they're obviously in the wrong for keeping it from her in the first place. Eventually, certain guards started to realize Shadowheart might not be telling the truth, so we started shoving her out of dialogue range. After many hours of this, everyone went so profoundly insane that no amount of talking or pushing would get us more weapons. I did feel confident we had made Moonrise an easier target for the Harpers later, especially since Dame Aelin will slaughter a few on the way to Ketheric. So, I went to go protect her girlfriend Isabel. No small feat for a level 6 party considering just how suicidal this particular Selûnite happens to be. We spent some time barricading her room in a wall of barrels up to the ceiling across all entrances, and trapped Isabel in a small box to save her from herself. Marcus was nearly able to out-heal our damage with Vampiric Shout during this fight. However, the barrel wall and Isabel cage strategy gets a 10 out of 10 for me. In fact, the only person who tried to free Isabel was Isabel, and she blasted her way out in a desperate attempt to make us fail. However, she did not have my permission to die, and was too little too late. It's hard to describe how annoying it is, spending 50% of your combat in the inventory screen, dropping weapons and equipping new ones next turn. But if you can imagine you are a stockbroker in 1929, congratulations, you can approximate 1% of the pain that I feel. Speaking of pain, the Githyanki are more of a kill now and get lied to later type civilization. So, Shadowheart introduced them to the most useful spell of this run, Fear. This spell can crowd control a large group for up to 3 turns, but more importantly, they drop the weapons in their hands. And this was the most effective weapon collection method I found by far. I needed as much ammunition as possible for Ketheric, but I did still want an item from Act 1. The only thing in our way? Our dear old auntie. This encounter is usually pretty scripted, yet our party quickly found themselves falling behind with Ethel's many clones, and were repeatedly punished for it. We did eventually manage to get her alone, and caved her skull in with a pickaxe, stabbed her with syringes, and any other random crap we could find in our inventory. But it was too late. My eyes widened in horror as the final clone spawned in. Our final attack missed, and Eric Andre was hit with the hold person. No. Then Shadowheart.
Wait.
Then Karlach.
Wait.
Just as all hope seemed lost, the hag gave up. Yeah, you better run. The real prize, however, came in the form of Connor, and while he can't actually attack anything, he will have a very important job to do soon, because it was time to prep for Ketheric. Mushrooms were picked, potions were bought, and buffs were acquired. It didn't seem feasible at this point to gain any more XP without a massive hit to our weapon supply, so we would rely on our allies to fight the growing population of people who wish they had swords, but no longer do. I didn't know if that would be enough to give us the edge in a head-on assault, and we were gambling a lot here. But I had no money or camp supplies left, so it was time to full send it into the Shadowfell. As per usual, I scoured every inch of the place for new tools. Ever seen the false spear of night? Ever seen Howie Mandel's penis? It's just as bald as he is. Alright, Shadowheart, time to break your vow and save our hero. What are you doing? Shadowheart, stop! Right, so, to recap our new situation, everyone we know and love is now dead. We are all out of food and supplies, all access to traders has been cut off. Hordes of enemies and multiple boss encounters stand between us and any sort of escape, and oh by the way, we are still level 6. I was now playing a survival horror game, and it was going to take more than a few miracles to avoid a non-consensual rearrangement of our internal organs. Plan 1 was to create a choke point and use arrows to make it into a kill box. A 3 out of 10 at best. It just used up way too many ranged weapons to be considered efficient. So I focused on an easier problem while brainstorming. Passing a persuasion check with this nurse unlocks her as our new one and only traitor, giving us very important access to potions, which now meant we could suffer and die at least 2 turns later than we were supposed to. Second plan, lure the massive swarm of undead harpers straight into the heart of Moonrise Towers. I'm gonna save you guys a lot of time here. 0 out of 10, doesn't work. Also, the Goblin's stone throw ability is strictly overpowered and ignores Sanctuary, which turned this from a plan to a public stoning. The only good that came from this was the weakening of Last Light Inn's defenses, and precious supplies could still be acquired if we were to reclaim it. It was then we saw her, the final beacon of light in a world consumed by darkness, Jaheira. She had been pushing back against the accursed horde, but death was closing in. Losing the High Harper would surely shatter our spirit entirely, and I was prepared to use every potion, every scroll, and any weapons at my disposal to try to save her. The fight was bitterly long and costly, and yet this small victory returned some much needed hope for the trials to come. Last Light Inn was stripped of its camp supplies, and slowly but surely, Moonrise Towers would be emptied out, the undead purged, and during the chaos once inside, Gale used his shield bash reaction, and accidentally broke a very pricey piece of gear. Chaos continued on the roof, where I foolishly attempted to implement a strategy done by Bouch down in the Mind Flayer colony. The idea is to summon Connor so many times, Ketheric is trapped by his own explosive eggs, and dies to a chain reaction of new necromites, spawning and dying. Evidently, I should have tested the rooftop fight outside of Honors mode, because, try as I may, I could not figure out how to summon him from out of combat, which meant sitting through round after round of nearly 100 necromites who would try to kill me, and I almost quit the run multiple times here. Sanctuary may keep Shadowheart safe, but there is no spell powerful enough to keep my sanity safe. All I had wanted to do was conserve my weapons. Is that really so wrong? The only thing that kept me going during these 6 hours of this torment was the naive thought that this had to be the worst of it. Surely no encounter could push me to this extent again, not after everything Act 2 has thrown at us. As I repeated these sweet little lies to myself for the millionth time, Ketheric finally had enough. Before heading down, we sold everything we possibly could to our nurse friend, getting us 5 flying potions, 4 invisibility potions, 54 healing potions, 70 medium healing potions, 53 large healing potions,
100 coffees, 55 wings, 55 shakes, 55 pancakes, 55 pasta, 55 pepper.
and 1 great big kiss for good luck. I dove into the colony, pushed a button, and broke my paladin oath. Simply amazing. No turning back now. We had a job to do. Our margin of error in this fight was going to be razor thin. Shadowheart talked down Ketheric, Eric Andre tackled the Mind Flayer, Karlach was on Necromite duty, and Gale created a darkness cloud so that we could start building small walls. Without an explosive safety net, I was desperate to separate Merkel from his allies. The Mind Flayer fell, but so did Gale. 3 rounds in, and we had made a devastating blunder. Gale had died in the middle of a darkness cloud. No line of sight means no resurrection scroll. This ability says the duration will be 3 turns, but it was infinite, and it stayed for all 90 rounds of combat. Gust of Wind could have moved the cloud, but guess who knew that spell? And along with Gale, our margin of error had disappeared entirely. Clubs and skeletons were smashed to pieces, the walls we kept putting up were broken over and over again, enemies continually grabbed the gear I left around, a really cool interaction that had been going on all run. It was funny seeing bugbears wielding sausages and necromites attacking with endgame loot. After many rounds, we could no longer hold back the tide of the undead, and Merkel returned to full health. Luckily, he stopped spawning more at this point, so for the next couple hours, an incredibly painful series of events would transpire. Karlach or Eric Andre would tank a hit from the scythe to stop Call of the Damned, then run through the darkness to prevent opportunity attacks, and heal for as much as possible. Sometimes we would get a hit in, but Shadowheart was running out of spell slots, and if I was hit with a fear out of position, it would mean certain death. Nearly 4 hours in, we had used up all of our spell slots, and were down to 8 healing potions. The noble stalk mushroom was eaten, buying Eric Andre enough time to drink a potion of angelic reprieve at the last possible second, allowing him to use one final smite. And the new world record holders for the longest Merkel fight of all time hightailed it out of there. Fighting the Githyanki was supremely unsatisfying, as monks do not carry weapons, but Act 3 is filled to the brim with free ammunition just lying around everywhere. What's that? No, I was just looking. Successfully speedrunning into Worms Rock Fortress, the party gathered to go meet one handsome young man. Unfortunately, Karlak lost her cool here, and proved to be far too hot-headed to continue her time on my team, and was dragged off to prison, never to be seen again. Welcome to the squad, Jaheira. We took our new member to raid a Sharan armory, and Shadowheart traded her parents for a pretty solid 22 on her charisma. A very stylish hat pushed it to 24, and the ultimate fear build had been created. With a Battle Mage's potion and the Shield of the Undevout, you would need to roll a 27 with disadvantage to resist her. Most bosses struggle to save even with legendary resistance, and God save you if you're a normal soldier, because everything you own now belongs to me. This newfound power made me confident for the fight with Orin, so I utilized yet another insane trick, where I place a chest in this specific spot, and then steal a password from a dwarf, speak the password to a door, slay 3 death knights, get bullied by an old man for an amulet, press the amulet against the door, and bam! Just like that, baby! We're in. We kicked things off by mind-controlling Orin while she was still in human form, and I watched gleefully while she ran around killing off all of her own followers as I launched the rest into the abyss. For once in this challenge run, a plan had exceeded my expectations, and the most successful combat encounter ended as Orin was still on our side. The spell did eventually run out, but the damage was already done. A very bloody Shadowheart went to go tell our friend the good news, and every single weapon we had left was stuffed into our inventories. The most cartoonish attempt to stop us so far also failed, and nothing would get in our way now.
What are you doing? Fight! Fight!
There was a misinput, calm down! You calm the fuck down! There was a misinput!
Well, that was definitely funny, and I am not at all upset with there being no second dialogue option after a misclick 75 hours in. Very cool. Finally, we made it to the brainstem, inhaled mushroom stimulants, and cast Karsus's compulsion in one turn. Once inside, a pitchfork was thrust into the brain. Marco Heshkir snapped like a twig. The Emperor lost his staff forever. Zephyr Slash came in clutch with pure thunder damage. And when the brain was no longer invulnerable to piercing, Orin's dagger along with a rusty pike absolutely chunked it. To be honest, I thought I was smart by trying to multi-class and give myself access to as many abilities as possible. But the truth is, the dumbest troglodytes and the highest IQ build crafter will come to the same conclusion when it comes to single-shot melee damage. Just play a paladin. I had officially been bell-curved, and it didn't feel good. But I simply cannot describe the ecstasy that came from crushing the final foe in this godforsaken run. The city was saved despite my inability to keep anything in one piece, and I ascended the heavens with Gale. Oh yeah, I had kind of been breaking his back this whole playthrough, and I beat Baldur's Gate 3 while destroying every weapon in one hit. Thank you for watching. And I also appreciate all the support in the last video. It was absolutely insane, and all the comments were so encouraging. I hope to be back soon. In the meantime, take care of yourself.